Arrested, humiliated, and accused of a crime he didn't commit. He thought it couldn't get worse. But what unfolds next turns the entire situation upside down in a way no one saw coming. It all started on a Tuesday evening, the kind of day where you feel like the universe is actively trying to screw you over. My name's Marcus Jones. I'm 22 years old, and I'm just your regular guy trying to survive in this godforsaken city. Let me paint you a picture. I just finished a hellish double shift at Lenny's Grill, where the fryer exploded, the AC died, and I swear one of the customers was seconds away from throwing a chicken wing at my head. So yeah, I was done. My only goal: get home, collapse, and pretend life didn't suck for a few hours. The sun was setting, painting the streets in this fake-ass golden light, like the universe was mocking me. I was walking through Lincoln Park, headphones in, zoning out to some throwback hip-hop. The kind of music that makes you feel invincible for like 5 seconds before reality kicks in. My hoodie was up, not because I was trying to look cool, but because Chicago in November doesn't play. The air was biting, and my breath came out in little puffs of frost. Then it happened. Sirens. You know that feeling when your stomach drops, like you're on a roller coaster? Except the only ride you're on is straight to hell. That's what hit me. I turned my head and saw the flashing red and blue lights bouncing off the brick walls around me. And just like that, my night went from crappy to holy shit, what now? 2 cops got out of their cruiser, all swagger and attitude. The tall one, let's call him Officer Meathead, had this smirk on his face that made me want to punch something. His partner, a stocky guy with a mustache that looked like it belonged in an 80s sitcom, was holding his hand near his holster, like I was about to bust out a bazooka or something. Overkill much? Hands where I can see 'em! Meathead barked, his voice loud enough to scare a squirrel off a tree nearby. I froze, pulling out my headphones. What the fuck is going on? Don't play dumb, kid. On the ground. Now. I stared at him, trying to process. The ground? Dude, I just finished a 12-hour shift, and I'm not exactly in the mood to... Now, he barked, his hand twitching toward his gun. That shut me up real quick. My brain was screaming, do not give these guys a reason. So, I dropped. Face down, on the freezing pavement, my breath fogging up against the cold concrete. It smelled like wet leaves and regret. Next thing I know, Mustache Cop is yanking my arms behind my back and slapping cuffs on me like I just robbed a goddamn bank. Whoa, 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 I shouted. What the hell am I being arrested for? You match the description, Mustache said, his voice flat and bored like he'd rather be anywhere else. Description of what? Looking tired and wearing a hoodie? I shot back, twisting my neck to glare up at him. Spoiler alert, half the city matches that. Meathead crouched down so his face was just inches from mine. Armed robbery. A liquor store got hit 2 blocks from here. Black male, early 20s, wearing a hoodie. Sound familiar? My jaw hit the floor. Well, metaphorically, the pavement was already doing a good job of that literally. Are you kidding me? I've been flipping burgers all night. Check my uniform, it still smells like grease. Save it for the station, Meathead growled, hauling me to my feet. My wrists were already screaming from the cuffs digging into them. These guys weren't just arresting me, they were making damn sure I felt every second of it. They shoved me into the back of their squad car. The door slammed shut with a finality that hit like a punch to the gut. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, my heart pounding like a drum solo. All I could think was, this cannot be happening. And here's the kicker. Meathead had the nerve to crack a joke. You know, kid, you really should pick a less obvious outfit for your next crime. I rolled my eyes so hard I was surprised that they didn't pop out of my head. Yeah, because I clearly planned this after an exhausting day making minimum wage. Genius detective work, Sherlock. The smirk on his face was infuriating. Keep it up, smartass. As the car rolled toward the precinct, I realized something. It didn't matter that I was innocent. These guys had already decided I was guilty. And if that didn't scare the hell out of me, I don't know what would. The squad car rolled into the precinct lot, and let me tell you, the vibe was chilly. Not because of the weather, though Chicago in November could make a penguin shiver, but because I knew I was about to walk into a building full of people already convinced I was some kind of criminal mastermind. Spoiler alert, the most illegal thing I've ever done is jaywalk, and even then I looked both ways. Meathead and Mustache dragged me out of the car like I was Hannibal Lecter, which was hilarious considering I was about as threatening as a wet kitten in my grease-stained hoodie. They hauled me through the front doors, and suddenly it felt like every cop in the room was staring at me. You know that scene in every movie where the record scratches and everyone stops what they're doing? Yeah, it was exactly like that. Except instead of curiosity, their faces screamed, "Guilty until proven guilty." I was dumped into a chair in a cold-ass interrogation room. No windows, just gray walls and a table that looked like it had seen more fists than paperwork. Meathead leaned against the wall, arms crossed, doing his best impression of a dollar store action hero. Mustache sat across from me, fiddling with his notepad like he was auditioning for a crime procedural. "All right, Marcus," Mustache said, finally breaking the silence. "Let's start with the basics. Where were you around 8:30 tonight?" I blinked. "Flipping burgers at Lenny's Grill. You know, living the American dream." Meathead snorted. "Right. Any witnesses to back that up?" Yeah, the 10 other people I work with. Or maybe the dozen customers who watched me slave over a fryer for 3 hours. Take your pick." Mustache jotted something down, probably doodling stick figures for all I knew. Meanwhile, Meathead was pacing like he'd just downed 3 espressos and needed to burn off the energy. "Let me save you the trouble," I said, leaning back in the chair. "You're looking for a guy who robbed a liquor store, right? Newsflash, I don't drink, and I definitely don't have the energy to rob anyone after a double shift. Unless you think I used a spatula as a weapon." Meathead stopped pacing and shot me a glare. "You think this is funny, kid?" "No," I shot back. "I think it's ridiculous. But hey, if you're looking for comedy, maybe try stand-up instead of harassment." Mustache sighed, clearly regretting every career choice that led him to this moment. "Look, Marcus, you fit the description. Black male, early 20s, wearing a hoodie. Witnesses saw someone like you running from the scene." "Someone like me," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Wow, what a rock-solid lead. You should frame that for the Police Academy Hall of Fame." Meathead stepped forward, slamming his hands on the table. "Watch it, smartass. We're trying to help you here." "Oh, really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Because it feels a lot like you're trying to ruin my night. But sure, let's call it help." Before Meathead could pop a vein, the door opened, and in walked Captain Rogers. He was older, with a face that looked like it had seen way too many late nights and bad coffee. His eyes flicked between me and the 2 clowns interrogating me. "What's going on here?" Rogers asked, his tone sharp. "We've got him, Captain," Meathead said, puffing up his chest. "Fits the description, and he's not giving us much to work with." Rogers looked at me, then back at Meathead. "You're telling me this kid pulled an armed robbery after working a double shift at a restaurant? You've got proof, right?" Meathead hesitated, and Mustache suddenly found his notepad very interesting. Rogers let out a sigh that could have melted an iceberg. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "All right, let me see what we've got." He left the room, and I sat there, watching as Meathead's confidence deflated like a cheap balloon. Mustache cleared his throat, trying to lighten the mood. "So Marcus, do you have anyone who can confirm your alibi?" I rolled my eyes. "Dude, I've already told you. My co-workers, the customers, probably even the guy who delivers the buns? Do your job and check." Meathead opened his mouth to say something snarky, but Rogers walked back in, holding a file. He dropped it on the table and leaned over, staring at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You were on 12th Street 2 weeks ago, weren't you?" he asked. I blinked, caught off guard. Yeah, so what?" He nodded, his face unreadable. "All right, sit tight. This might get interesting." And just like that, he left again, leaving me alone with Meathead and Mustache, who now looked like kids caught stealing cookies. I had no idea what Rogers was talking about, but something told me this night was far from over. I was still sitting in that icebox of an interrogation room, cuffed and pissed, when Captain Rogers came back in, this time with a different energy. The dude wasn't messing around anymore. He slapped a folder on the table like it was a trump card in a poker game. "Marcus," he said, sitting down across from me, "you sure you don't have anything else to tell us about where you were 2 weeks ago?" I raised an eyebrow. 2 weeks ago? You're kidding me, right? I don't even remember what I had for breakfast this morning." Rogers leaned back, watching me like he was piecing together a puzzle only he understood. "You were on 12th Street, near that convenience store." The memory hit me like a freight train. Oh, that day. The one where I'd seen some guy beating the hell out of a cop in an alley. I jumped in without thinking, just trying to keep the guy alive until help showed up. Didn't even stick around for a thank you. Just figured, good deed done. Time to move on. "Yeah, I was there," I said cautiously. "Why?" Rogers opened the folder, pulled out a photo and slid it across the table. It was the cop I'd helped, bruised, bleeding, but alive. "This is Officer Harper," Rogers said, his tone softening just a bit. "He remembers you, says you saved his life." Meathead, who'd been leaning against the wall looking all smug, suddenly looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Mustache? The guy was practically hiding behind his notepad. Rogers ignored them both, his focus locked on me. "You didn't think to mention that when we brought you in?" Rogers asked, his voice calm but firm. I shrugged, the cuffs clinking against the table. "Didn't realize my good deeds came with a get-out-of-jail-free card. Besides, you guys didn't exactly give me a chance to explain. What with the whole face-down-on-the-pavement thing?" Rogers sighed, rubbing his temples like he was trying to will away the headache we'd collectively given him. "Look, Marcus, This changes things. Harper's on his way here to confirm your story. If it checks out, you're free to go." "Gee, thanks," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You know, maybe next time, start with that before treating me like a damn criminal." Meathead opened his mouth to fire back, but Rogers shot him a look that could have frozen lava. "Enough. Go make yourself useful and start verifying his alibi." As Meathead and Mustache shuffled out, tails firmly between their legs, Rogers turned back to me. "For what it's worth, kid, Harper's alive because of you. That counts for something." I didn't respond, just sat there stewing. Yeah, I'd saved a life, but here I was, locked up and treated like garbage. If that counted for something, I sure wasn't feeling it yet. The door swung open and in walked Officer Harper. The dude looked better than in the photo Rogers had shown me, but there was no mistaking the scars from that night. His eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, I couldn't tell if he was here to vouch for me or to finish what Meathead started. "Yeah, that's him," Harper said, pointing at me as he spoke to Rogers. "He's the one who pulled that guy off me." Rogers gave a curt nod like he'd been expecting that answer. Meanwhile, Meathead and Mustache, who'd slunk back in after Harper arrived, looked like they wanted to melt into the wallpaper. "You're telling me this kid saved your life?" Rogers asked, keeping his voice level, but you could tell he was rubbing salt in the wound for his officers. Harper crossed his arms. "That's exactly what I'm telling you. I wouldn't be standing here if he hadn't stepped in." I let out a low whistle, leaning back in the chair as much as the cuffs would allow. "Wow, so I'm not just a guy in a hoodie anymore? Feels good to be recognized." Harper gave me a small, tired smile. "Look, man, I'm sorry you had to go through this. Not all of us make snap judgments." "Oh, you mean like them?" I tilted my head toward Meathead and Mustache, who were doing their best impressions of statues. "Yeah, great team spirit." Rogers shot me a look that said, "Don't push it," before nodding toward Harper. "We'll take it from here. Thanks for coming in." Harper gave me one last nod before walking out, leaving me alone with Rogers and his dynamic duo of regret. Rogers reached into his pocket, pulled out a key, and unlocked my cuffs. The relief on my wrists was immediate, but the relief in my chest, not so much. "You're free to go," Rogers said simply. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened." I stood, rubbing my wrists, my tone dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, don't worry about it, Captain. This was a great way to spend my night. You guys really know how to roll out the red carpet." Meathead took a step forward, like he wanted to say something, but Rogers cut him off with a sharp glare. Not another word. As I walked out of the precinct, the cold night air hit me like a slap, but it was still better than the suffocating vibe inside. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably my manager wondering why I hadn't clocked out properly. Typical. Looking back at the precinct, I shook my head. Sure, I was free, but the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, Harper was alive because of me, but the system? It was still broken, still stacked against guys like me. And that, I thought, was the real crime.